Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will analyze the case of Linda De Sousa Abreu. First I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Linda Catherine De Sousa Abreu was born in the mid-1990s in Venezuela. She grew up in Brazil. She married an MMA fighter named Nathan Richardson. Linda worked as a personal trainer and had an account on OnlyFans where she published clothing-challenged images. In her description, Linda wrote, quote, "I am a happily married, sexy Latina who wants to share hot content with you, experience my real life, real love, real sex, and real orgasms. We believe in authenticity. All our content will be genuine and we'll never fake it because we want you to enjoy watching it as much as we'll enjoy making it," unquote. Sometime around 2017, Linda had a daughter. On Britain's Channel 4, Linda and her husband were featured in a reality show called The Great Sex Experiment. She participated in group sex with over a dozen people. Linda did not appear to be a fan of monogamy. She said, "Monogamy is a social construct that I think needs to be dismantled." As far as how having sex with many other people would affect her marriage, Linda said, "Opening up our relationship has allowed us to form a deeper connection with each other." In January 2024, Linda started working as a prison officer at His Majesty's Prison Wandsworth in southwest London. This is often simply referred to as HMP Wandsworth. She completed her basic training in April 2024. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On June 25, 2024, Linda was on duty at HMP Wandsworth when she engaged in forbidden activity. She made her way to the cell of a prisoner named Linton Wyrick. He was serving a term of 4 years and 9 months for burglary and theft. Linton had stolen over £65,000 worth of property from a safe in a private residence in Kensington. The police were able to catch him because he was wearing an ankle monitor at the time. It seems clear why Linton was not sent to a prison for gifted inmates. Linda entered Linton's cell, which was also occupied by another inmate. The second inmate had a cell phone and appeared to be smoking cannabis. Linda took no action against this inmate, even though it was against the rules to possess a phone or cannabis. At this point, Linda put her radio down and had sex with Linton in a variety of positions. A judge would later say that she participated with evident enthusiasm. The prisoner with the phone recorded 4.5 minutes of the sexual activity. To Linda and Linton, he proclaimed, "Guys, we made history. This is how we live at Wandsworth. You know you are a gangster." The video did a better job escaping from prison than most inmates do. It ended up on the internet and was very popular. 2 days after the sexual encounter, on June 27, 2024, Linda learned that the video had been made public. She called the prison early on June 28 and said that she would not be returning to work, ever. She was at the airport due to a family emergency. At 7 p.m. on that same day, Linda was arrested at Heathrow Airport, where she was preparing to board a plane to Madrid, Spain. She was charged with misconduct in public office. The maximum sentence for this offense is technically life in prison. In practice, the typical sentence is much shorter than life. An investigation revealed that the sexual contact with Linton on June 25 was not a one-time thing for Linda. There had been at least 3 encounters. For example, Linda had sex with Linton earlier that same day. Part of this activity was recorded on her body camera. On June 29, the police attempted to interview Linda, but she had no comment. Linda and her attorney, however, did submit a written statement. Essentially, the statement claimed that Linda had been under duress and Linton pressured her into having sex. The prisoner who recorded the sex functioned as Linton's accomplice. Later, Linda admitted that these allegations against the prisoners were false. In July 2024, Linda pleaded guilty. On January 6, 2025, Linda was sentenced to 15 months in prison. However, she is only required to serve half that sentence in custody. The rest can be served on license, which is similar to probation. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. HMP Wandsworth is one of the worst prisons in Britain. About 44% of the prisoners are using substances. 80% of the inmates share cells which were designed for only one person. Many of the prisoners go for several days without taking a shower, and there are 10 attacks on staff members each week. It is an extremely dangerous and corrupt environment where the lines between inmates and guards often get blurred. Linda was not the first guard at that prison to have sex with an inmate. Item number 2. Linda claimed that she did not know having sex with an inmate was illegal. She realized it was against the prison rules, but did not realize it was against the law. When she was arrested at the airport, she was planning to leave the country until interest in her case died down, like she was waiting for the media coverage to fade away. In my opinion, there is no question that Linda knew that having sex with an inmate was illegal. During her training to become a guard, this was clearly stated. Item number 3. Some people have tried to frame Linda's offense as a victimless crime. They say things like, it was not a good idea, but she really didn't do any damage. Maybe she should not have been sentenced to prison at all. In reality, Linda's behavior led to more chaos in an already broken system. HMP Wandsworth is a terrible place to work. The guards there don't need it to be any worse. Due to Linda's actions, female prison officers were subjected to sexual advances by prisoners, and their children were teased at school about what their mothers may be doing at work. Violating boundaries with a prisoner is always dangerous. It gives the prisoner leverage which can be used to obtain contraband or for other illegal purposes. Item number 4. Prior to being sentenced, Linda was evaluated by mental health professionals. Here is what the clinician said about Linda's mental health. Linda had borderline personality disorder, and her symptoms were severe. She also had ADHD. She was impulsive, reckless, had a history of engaging in risky behavior, and used sex to experience positive emotions. I think a lot of people would fall into that category, but I think they mean that she was using it in an inappropriate way, like she was highly interested in sex. In HMP Wandsworth, where she worked, she thrived on fear and anxiety. Linda loved working in the prison and the attention she was able to attract in that environment. The sense of power was extremely enjoyable, and Linda appeared to be grandiose. One clinician also suggested that Linda could be delusional, but the diagnoses do not feature delusions. Perhaps the clinician was just using a figure of speech. Linda developed a close attachment to the inmate, Linton. She desperately wanted to continue her romantic relationship with him after he was released from prison. Linda believed that she loved him. Linton made her feel safer than she has ever felt in her life. He was her protector. Linda knew her behavior was wrong, but did not think she would get caught. Not surprisingly, the judge found that Linda's mental health diagnoses significantly contributed to the commission of the crime. Item number 5. As I mentioned, Linton Wyrick, the prisoner who was recorded having sex with Linda, was in prison for burglary and theft. Some of his victims were furious over Linton's sexual adventure, believing that he should not be having fun in prison. One could make a good argument this is a distorted interpretation of the incident. If the genders were reversed in this scenario, many people would view the inmate as the victim. Because Linton is a man, somehow he is not the victim, rather he's having too much fun for a prisoner. Linda was the person with the legitimate authority in the situation. She had the power. She was in control. This means that Linton was the victim. He may have enjoyed his encounter with Linda, but that doesn't change the underlying dynamic. As it turns out, some tough times came up for Linton. After the incident with Linda, he was transferred to Swaleside Prison. On December 18, 2024, less than 3 weeks before Linda was sentenced, Linton was in a visitor's area with his girlfriend and 3-month-old baby. Another inmate punched Linton, causing him to fall on his baby. Linton was injured, and his baby had a fractured skull. Both were taken to a hospital, treated, and later discharged. It does not appear as though Linton is having too much fun now. Item number 6. What do I think happened in the case of Linda De Sousa Abreu? This is just a theory, my opinion. Linda was self-centered, erratic, impulsive, irresponsible, reckless, vulnerable, insecure, had unstable mood, desperately sought romantic partners, was afraid of rejection, and believed that sex equaled love. Her irresistible urge to become romantically involved with men overwhelmed any logical thought processes. If sex and romance were a possibility for her, the consequences of obtaining them did not matter. In her job as a prison officer, Linda violated boundaries and became close to Linton. It is not surprising that Linton was willing to have sex with her. After all, in prison, his options were somewhat limited. Linda misinterpreted Linton's willingness as indicating he was in love with her. Again, she had a problem with confusing sex and love. After participating in the correctional carnal caper, Linda was very happy with herself. There were no worries about this penitentiary playtime party backfiring on her. Linda trusted that nobody would ever watch that video recorded by the other inmate. The entire lockup lust liaison would be forgotten. The only place the guardhouse giggle grind would exist would be in her memory. Unfortunately for Linda, the behind bars bonking caught up with her. The reward for her slammer seduction soiree was Linda getting her very own cell. For Linda, this means she will have even more opportunities to fall in love. Perhaps she has not experienced her last dirty detention dance. Now moving to my final thoughts. During my career, I have worked directly with a number of people who had borderline personality disorder and supervised dozens of clinicians who treated people with BPD. Some of these individuals with BPD had a severe expression of borderline traits. These types of clients can be quite challenging. The counselor must frequently remind the client of the boundary which must be maintained. This boundary between the client and the counselor can never be crossed. To do so leads to disaster every single time. People with severe borderline traits often attempt to cross boundaries, which leads to a discussion about why boundaries are in place and why maintaining them is critical for the safety of everyone involved. Counseling cannot be effective without boundaries, and boundary crossing causes a lot of damage. If boundary crossing behavior plays out this dramatically in a counseling setting, imagine how it would play out if somehow the client was in the position of authority. What if they were the counselor? It would be nothing short of sheer chaos. The boundary would be crossed immediately, and the violation would be significant. The counseling profession has many different gatekeeping mechanisms to prevent this from happening. Sometimes these measures fail, but the vast majority of the time the profession can effectively screen out individuals with pronounced borderline traits. Again, I'm not talking about anybody with BPD, rather those with severe symptom expressions. These expressions greatly interfere with functioning. Other professions do not have the same safeguards in place. For example, a person with severe borderline traits would have a much better chance of becoming a prison guard than a mental health counselor. Having a guard with these symptoms would put everybody in danger: the guard, the guard's coworkers, and the prisoners. In Linda's case, there is the sense that the screening process catastrophically failed. There is no way she ever should have been offered a position as a guard. This was yet another failure by an already broken correctional system. They will never be able to solve their problems with inmates by converting the guards into inmates as well. Those are my thoughts on the case of Linda De Sousa Abreu. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Just a reminder that I have a Patreon account which contains over 300 pre-release videos. When I publish a pre-release video, it stays in that mode, usually for a few months, if not a year. So it's not like I put these videos up as pre-release and then a couple of days later I make them public. I will put the link to my Patreon account in the description for this video.